my heroes are all entrepreneurs. They're the people who create jobs. They're people who create companies. They're people who create great products and services. And I believe very strongly in entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship and business leaders. And I admire what you're doing here. I think it's great that you've grown the business so much, and keep it up.
Welcome to Above the Legal Limit. I'm your host, Justin Chopin, business owner, lawyer, dad, world's best husband, traveler, and adventure seeker. On this podcast, we mix business with pleasure. We'll dive into growth strategies, entrepreneurial adventures, the business of law, and prove that business isn't boring. So let's get ready, because we are going above the legal limit. Hey, well, welcome to Above the Legal Limit. We have a special guest here today, Jude Olinger. Did I say it right?
Yeah, Jude Olinger. Close
okay.
enough.
All right.
Thank
before
you, Justin.
we started, I asked you how to say your name so that I wouldn't screw it up, and then I told you once I got it right the first time, then it was never going to happen again. But thanks for joining us. And why don't you, tell our audience maybe a little bit about yourself?
Sure. So I am a entrepreneur and small business owner, have a market research business that I've had for 30 years. We do custom primary market research, which is fancy words for we do surveys and focus groups and study consumers, primarily consumers, for big Fortune 500 companies. So that's been my business for the last 30 years. About a little bit less than a year ago, I transitioned out of that business. I still own it. I turned it over to my leadership team to run it, and I became a growth coach for leadership teams. So I'm a business growth coach for leadership teams now. The business is called Bloom Growth Coach, and I coach a variety of businesses across multiple verticals and help them implement a system of an execution communication system that really works because it's about simplification and prioritization of their business, and help shepherd them through and implement the system into their business so that they become bigger, better versions of themselves.
Hey, we could all use that. We were talking about this before we formally started the show.
Yeah.
If you're listening, this is halfway through. So we also went through massive growth, and we doubled in size last year.
Wow, congratulations. That's fantastic.
And it's just, it's great, and it exhausted everybody. You could tell the team had they were just weary from the growth, from change. And so this year I was like, what we're going to do this year? We're just going to chill out. Okay. We're going to retool the systems that we put in place. Mm-hmm. We're going to really familiarize ourselves. We did it all. Like we switched internet providers, we switched phone providers, we got all new phones, we switched document management systems, we got a new CRM, we added an entire intake department. Mm-hmm. We added I don't know how many lawyers, I don't know. We doubled the lawyers, we doubled the staff. We have a VA, we got a couple of VAs out in the Philippines helping us out. So it was just, and every day I'd come in and be like, guys, everyone get ready. I hope you're as jazzed about this as I am. And they're not, right? They don't care. They're just like, please leave me alone.
Let me do my job.
Please. Right. So this year I was like, that was a lot to take on.
Yeah.
It was one of those where we were talking about you write out your list of goals for the year and who's going to do it and in what time frame, right? And so I'm like writing out, we should do this, we should do this, we should do this. And you were saying you'll never get all that done, right? It's not a realistic goal. I think we absolutely, I shouldn't say absolutely, I think we actually managed to accomplish almost everything on our list.
That's amazing. That's really...
The only ones that
admirable.
were left were these really silly, amorphics were on the board. They're like, we should do more community outreach. And I'm like, okay, but does anyone have anything concrete? Is there
how do you
what
measure?
do you actually want to do?
Right.
And they're like,
I tell people,
outreach.
what does that look like when you know? How do you know that you've accomplished it?
Right. I was like, are you saying you want to give out turkeys?
Yeah.
Okay. We can give out turkeys, but so where do you want to give them out? Who are you going to give them out to? Where are you going to buy them? What are they for?
How many?
How many? Right.
Yeah.
And I was like, so even something as simple as handing out turkeys at Thanksgiving, I don't think people always realize just how much work goes into that. I was like, how are you going to tell the community about it? You know, what are you going to go like hijack an interview outside in front of the federal court and be like, hold on, everybody, just real quick here. Justin Chopin will let you know about some free turkeys over at the A&P, right? Like that's not going to work. So, you know, anyways, so we doubled in size and that was really great. And then this year I thought we would retool, and it's really funny because it's not. It's just we changed out some roles. We built out roles and then decided we hated it, so we got rid of it. And so it's just this ever-evolving process. But ultimately, the coaching was really helpful to be a sounding board for me.
Mm-hmm. Is it individual coaching for you, or is it for your team?
It's really for me.
Okay.
You know, we have a leadership team here,
Yeah.
but ultimately, it's me. I have 3 partners. Mm-hmm. They live in the business. They live in the practice.
So they're in the business, and you're on the business. Is that
essentially? Okay. Yeah.
You work on the business.
I work
they work
on the
in
business.
the business,
and we collaborate on the law. Right.
Yeah.
So I was just, in a lawyer's office and we were talking about, we have a trial coming up. What are we going to do?
Right.
Strategy. How do we want to take this deposition? Mm-hmm. Or do we not even want to do that? Do we want to have the lawyer, the doctor live at trial? Right. So there are always these like legal strategies going on in the background. But then they're executing that. Whereas, I'm more in that sort of, I am spitballing for them. And then you get to working on the business and there's no one to spitball with, right?
Very common, right? So oftentimes I run across leadership teams and the owner feels very isolated and they have a difficult time many times working on the business. You seem more disciplined to work on the business the way you described your role to me earlier, right? You said my job is, and you were talking about marketing and intake and feeding the business, right? I said earlier that all businesses seem to have one of 3, they have 3 functions. Sales, they got to sell something, they got to make or do something, and then they got to collect the money. And so you're leading the spear right here with the sales part.
I'm definitely in the front end, yeah. And then in processes and systems and trying to, so we have a problem like every law firm, right? So I'm a member of this organization where in addition to the individual coaching I have, I get to meet with other law firm owners who are really not my competitors, and they come from all across the country. And so we all sort of just, it's like a group therapy, like, hi, my name is Justin. I'm a law firm owner. And so everybody has the same problems. The problem is you get to the end of a case, you've done a great job for a client, but you have to wait for Medicaid to give you the thumbs up, that they don't have a lien. And Medicaid, right? It's like, quasi-government. Exactly. And it could take ages. And I have no control. There's nothing I can do. I've actually had to tell clients, I was like, I can't make someone else go do their job. Right? We're officially to the point of like, I could like go down to their office and be like, sit down. Like I physically cannot make someone else do work. I can pester, I can make meaningless threats, but it doesn't work. So we're at their mercy, and that's where the client relationship can sometimes, erode. Right, because clients are like, well, I don't understand, Justin. We settled our case for a couple $100,000, and I'm just sitting here waiting. I'm unable to work, and I'm hurt, and what's going on? And so the point being is that I'll also kind of work on systems. I'm like, okay, what can we do to speed this up?
Yeah.
So let's start over. How did we build the case on the front end? What did we do? Where are the delays coming in? And so that's when what we did was we hired somebody whose only job is to work on liens. And so it's like, we're going to have one person own this task. And if we continue to grow, it'll be one department owning the task. But we're going to have one person. That way, it's never like, well, I asked so-and-so to do it. No. One person's going to own this task.
That's their responsibility, yeah.
That's their responsibility.
Well, I think you described something that's very important in inspecting as you grow. What are the roles and responsibilities that need to be built out for us to be able to do the growth and to be able to provide the quality of service or speed or whatever it might be in the system, right? So you're working on the business again as a process, from a process point of view, and that's critically important as you grow, because what you want process to do is you want process to be done the same over and over and over again. You want to squeeze out the inefficiencies, and you want to have people have the same result. Right, so that you're not really getting, we do it a different way every time, we get a different result. That's not very scalable, right? And you're trying to scale the business. And I coach clients all the time to say, what are the 20% of the steps to get us 80% of the result? Let's document the 20% of the steps. Not a big 200-page SOP that nobody's going to read, right? but what are the 20% of the steps that gets 80% of the result? And that's our process. And we keep improving that, and we keep documenting it. But biggest is it's got to be shared by all. We need everyone here to know how the process works. Checklists are a great way to do that. There's a lot of ways to memorialize this. But when you can do that in a business, any business, law or whatever, you really speed up the productivity and efficiency of the business, and therefore you speed up its growth.
Yeah. It is the goal that we have to be able to do that. It's not always so easy to execute. But it's, I was listening to, I'm officially now listening to books. I never thought I'd be that guy, right? So in my youth, I was like very pretentious with my books. And like, well, no, I'm reading, hardback versions of Hemingway. And then I started reading on my phone, which is nice because then you can read anything you want, and you can.
It's always with you. The book's always with you,
right? Like you could read like a teen novel, and no one's like judging you. You're like, what? Right? But now I'm so stretched thin. I found myself listening to a book.
Yeah.
And I was listening to a book by John D. Hanson, and it's all about winning and success and how we define winning and success. And he was bringing up a very salient point about that, which I've already forgotten. What were we talking about? You were said
process, efficiency, speed, growth.
Yeah. Well, I already forgot. There was a really great corollary. John D. Hanson. Winning. and so I was listening to him last night, and it's all about how you define success.
Yeah.
And I got it.
Okay.
And it was all about. So when we define success, part of defining success is understanding that failure is just the process to success, right? And so I knew there was a tie-in here. It wasn't just a shameless plug for John D. Hanson. But failure is the process to success. And we see that here in our business all the time, not in the practice, right? Like that's no good, but in the business side. We were like, hey, this is a great idea. We should build out this whole new role, right? Yeah. And it was a complete failure on every front. The way we staffed it, the way that we went about doing it, but what it did was it allowed us to remember what are our core values. Why didn't this work? Mm-hmm. It didn't work. So what we did was, we were going to do these what we call pre-lit paralegals, right? So you have a staff member that's really owning the work before a lawsuit's filed.
Okay.
It just doesn't fit in with our business model. It doesn't fit with our ethos and who we are. No job can get passed off like that. The lawyer owns the task. I always say, if you want to, when you come here, you hire a lawyer, you're getting a lawyer. You're not getting a case manager. You're not getting somebody who doesn't have the skill and the training to handle your case, because that is what you're getting at my competitors. And so, it allowed that failure really helped us to remember, okay, who are we? What is our unique value in this business? Last time I saw, there were 28,000 lawyers in the state of Louisiana. There's no shortage.
That's it,
right?
I know 28,000 lawyers in New Orleans.
Right. Well, the problem, they're all here. It is a competitive market here, and so you got to find your value where you can find it. And so, but those failures leading to success, and in the business, we try something out. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, I always tell my people, if it doesn't work, don't worry about it.
Right,
make sure I'm the first one to know, and we'll change it immediately. And they do. They I know when I've got my two boss paralegals, they come in, they say, "Can we talk to you for a minute?" And then they close the door. I think, "Oh shit, here we go. What did I do?
Something's not working."
Yeah, they're something's not working. You got to fix this, Justin. So,
well, I will tell you this, Justin. So, in my 30 years of running my market research business, one of the things we would do, and early on, we proclaim, "We're doing this," and then we would go out and we would try it or do it or attempt to do it, and it didn't work, and then we would stop doing it without really recognizing or acknowledging that it had failed. So, at some point, we said, "Hey, we're going to try this for 90 days, or we're going to try this for 6 months," and then everybody's expectations, and we're set. And we're going to iterate. It wasn't, otherwise, if we stopped doing it, it was oh, he or she or they just said we're going to do these things from on high. They didn't get our feedback, and then they just ignored it. So their word isn't really that strong in what they say they're going to do. And it's not really hedging necessarily that we're not going to do something. It's saying we can improve what we're doing, and let's try it and pilot it first before we go all in, especially on big initiatives, right?
It's a disciplined approach.
It is. I think it's
I
a
like
more disciplined
that.
approach.
It's because if you just dip your toe in the water, maybe it's working, maybe it's not working. I like this idea of like, we're going to do this for 6 months. At the end of the 6 months, we're going to meet, we're going to talk about it. Because it may be that the initiative is great, but there are a few things that need to be retooled for it to be really successful.
And it might even be shorter than 6 months. It might be 30. We're going to look at it every 30 days, depending on how much we've figured out, how fluid it is, right? So we want to, constant improvement is inspecting what you're doing and making changes and course corrections.
Yeah.
It's not very, the whole thing of, lunacy is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result, right? We're not going to do that. That doesn't work.
Right. So but I think a lot of businesses do. Right?
I think many do.
They didn't tape, they start doing it. It's a broken process, but they'll just keep doing it because it's more work to then scrap it, start over, and have to come up with something better.
Well, I find the biggest thing that people do is they say, I don't have time to fix that process. I don't have time to think about a way to do it better because I'm so busy just doing the work.
Yeah.
And I challenge people, okay, there's the story of the two lumberjacks cutting trees. One goes off after the first day. They cut the same amount of wood the first day. The next day, the one guy goes off and is gone for an hour, comes back, and he cuts more wood than the other guy who's never stopped working. And then the next day, he's gone for longer. And after the third day, the guy says, what the hell? You leave. I'm still here chopping wood or cutting wood, and you're outdoing me. What's going on? He's, I'm going to sharpen my saw. Right? It's the idea of you got to stop, evaluate, sharpen your tool instead of just keep trying to plow through everything.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's the perfect metaphor for 2024 for us. Yeah. I was like, let's sharpen these tools that we got. We got all these new tools in place. Let's sharpen them and make sure that we really are squeezing every bit of utility out of them before we start.
And many people can't see that because they think, I'm so busy doing it. I'm so busy. I don't have time to stop and figure it out. And I would challenge you to say, well, that's the perfect time to stop and try to figure it out.
Yeah.
And I tell people, look, there's oftentimes, and I preach this to my clients, and we did it in my own business. What can I delegate? That's not my thing, so that I can elevate myself. What can I automate? How can we automate something? What can we eliminate? Why are we even doing this at all? Or if I go through all the steps and say, oh, we just got to keep doing it. Okay, well, we've taken a critical approach to analyzing and figuring out what it is we're doing. We're not just doing it because we're on autopilot. We're doing it for a purposeful thing. But when we really inspect what we can delegate, automate, or eliminate, a lot of good stuff happens. So I would submit to you that think about that as you're looking at your process and your growth.
And so a lot of times where our growth is stymied is on me, right? And I can only do so much, or I'm just like everybody else. And Mondays are hard and I'm just trying to get by, or I'm procrastinating and dragging my feet because I don't feel like doing it. So good piece of advice I got from my group is anything you really dislike doing, there is somebody out there who is really good at it
and loves doing it.
Right. And there's someone else who loves doing it. So,
find them.
And that is where we are. So I hired a director of operations. And his name is Nick. Nick came in with no legal experience, which is exactly what I wanted, right? I didn't want somebody who's like, well, we always did this at my law firm. No, I don't want that at all. Yeah. He worked in business, and so I wanted somebody to have a fresh perspective. And so, now I don't have to worry about running payroll because I always screwed it up, right? My CPA was like, Justin, don't take offense to this. You're not a very good bookkeeper. And I'm like, well, no kidding. I'm not a bookkeeper at all. I'm a lawyer who's having to keep books, right?
I have a law license, not a CPA.
Exactly. I was like, my degrees are all in the liberal arts. I remember my economics professor in college being like, don't worry, we're not going to use any numbers here, right? we were like full theory. We're and law school is the same way. If someone even wrote a number on the board, everybody kind of like panicked. We're like, we're not, this isn't going to be on the test, is it? Right? And so I don't know anything about bookkeeping. So we hired a bookkeeper. And so, and the reason we did that is I wrote down, so their other thing was, where are you using your time? What are you doing? How many hours? So on Monday, write down all the things you do and how many hours a day you do them, or how much time. And then over the week, I was spending 30 hours a week as a bookkeeper. And everyone's like, so is that your value? Is that the most? With, you graduated at the top of your class from law school, you worked for some of the, biggest firms in town. Is that all you've been able to achieve, is keeping books?
I was coaching someone this morning at a coffee shop. The guy runs a few $100 million construction business. And we were talking about this very thing. And it's like, how do I figure out what to delegate? I said, well, the simple exercise that I did was we just journaled it for a week. Like, what are all the things that I'm doing and everything else? And my number two, my operations person came in and said, okay, everybody turn all this work in. And then we sat down and we looked at it and say, is that really the highest, best use of your time? And the answer is no.
No, clearly not.
And here's the thing of someone like yourself or someone like me, we have unique abilities. Everyone has a unique ability. Why are we making people do things that aren't playing to their unique abilities, making do things that they struggle with or fail at or are uncomfortable with or just aren't making them happy? Let's spend our time working on these unique things that are unique to ourselves that only we can do. I'm sure there are many things in this business that only you can do. There are many things in my business that only I can do. And if I'm not doing them because I'm doing something else that somebody else can do, well, what good is that to the business?
Right.
Right.
I find I have a problem of, now that I've delegated a lot of things away and off my my desk, now I need to stop and like get some clarity. Is like, what are the things that only I can do? And that is also one of those questions that's sort of ever evolving, but not very simple to answer. And so I think it was like last week, I was texting my wife, who's also a lawyer. She didn't really love what I had to say. I was like, I feel like I've got nothing to do. She's a defense lawyer, so she's working around the clock. So I was like, all right, never mind, honey. I'm very busy right now. I got to go. Somebody just walked in. Right. But, and you can't like walk around the halls and be like, I've got nothing to do today, right? Because you'll have a mutiny on your hands. But it definitely, we are in another growth point here, where in the next year or so, I do see where there's going to be additional roles added, moving more things off my plate. But what's interesting is, as I've done that, the firm has become really self-sufficient, right? And so it used to be I handled all the intake.
Yeah,
I liked it. I was good at it, right? I mean, I love a good sales pitch. It gives me energy, but as we continue to grow, we're getting a couple hundred leads a day. I can't do that anymore, right? And then it became, where it was overly burdensome, and I didn't want to do it anymore. So we built out an intake department. So I still oversee the intake. I still talk to them. I'm still checking in. I still want to like, where are we? But I'm not actually on the phone. Being like, yes, I can help you. And then so we parceled a lot of these things off. I would mentor all the staff, right? And then we hired a director who's really overseeing, the operations of the staff. So then that's off my plate.
That's one of the entrepreneur's dilemmas, right? So when you start a business as a business owner, oftentimes you're doing everything.
Right, all the hats.
Right, you have all the hats. And it's very difficult sometimes to realize, hey, I don't need to be doing these things. And in fact, I'm actually not as good at them as someone else is who loves doing it more than me or whatever it might be. And I'm the funnel. Like I'm the thing that's slowing our progress, slowing our growth.
Yeah.
Example I have that I think is really interesting. I've got a client who's got a seafood processing business. And I showed up to do some coaching with him and he says, I've been up since 3 o'clock this morning or whatever, and I was at the plant at 5. And I said, what are we doing there? He goes, I was checking the fish. And I said, is that the highest and best use of you to be checking the fish? He goes, no, but I like it, and I've always done it. I'm saying, but yes, but you want to acquire other companies. You have a few $100 million a year company. What the hell? Like, that's probably not the highest and best use, right? And it was a light bulb moment. I mean, the guy's a brilliant, smart guy, but it was a blind spot.
Well, because it's like muscle memory, right? Like we're all creatures of habit.
Yeah.
And if I always check the fish, right, or for me, like I'm always living in intake, it's all out of habit, and no one ever stops and be like, no, I'm not going to do this thing that I like doing. I mean, it's a bummer, right, for an entrepreneur. There are things that you like to do, and now it's you have an option. You can do it. By the way, there are plenty, on the law side, there are plenty of law firm owners who are like, well, no, I really want to take all the depositions because I enjoy doing it. That's fine. So that is one path you can take, But if your goal is to have 1,000 cases on your docket, or if your goal is to be a powerhouse distributor in the Gulf South of fish, maybe you can check the fish today, but you won't be able to check the fish tomorrow.
Yeah.
And that's where, on the law side, it's like maybe you can take that deposition today, but if you don't figure out a way to get someone else to do it, you will be the one doing it for the rest of your career. It'll be very, sooner or later, you're going to have to give up the reins on something. And so, I haven't taken a deposition. God, maybe I shouldn't say this. It's been a few years since I've taken a deposition. I'd say the biggest fear for me is, and maybe even the seafood distribution company is like, what happens when I got to go back to checking the fish, because it's been a while,
Well,
I'm ready for trial, but it's like, I'm not necessarily, I don't want to argue every little petty motion and, take every little deposition on every case. Right.
Yeah. And in my business, my market research business, after 30 years, like I had hired people that were way better at doing all these functions than me. Right. And I did have that fear. Like, I don't want to go back to doing those things. I want to elevate myself. And I was able to elevate myself out of a job, which was something I have lots of people telling me that they're interested in doing. They just don't know how to get there. Right. And I say the way you get there is to build a leadership team and a structure and discipline and accountability within your organization so that others are doing that. And you have a very clear vision for where you want to go and how you're going to get there. And the way you do that is 1 week at a time through your meetings, 1 quarter at a time through setting quarterly priorities. This whole simplification prioritization we were talking about earlier, you got to do it one at a time. You can't boil the ocean, right? Trying to do it all at the same time.
Yeah. And part of it for me, and I suspect for him too, is all about those key hires. So I have a lawyer here. When we used to hire associates, associates would do grunt work, but it's really your job as a seasoned attorney to teach them everything they need to know. I eventually came to realize I can teach you how to be a plaintiff's lawyer. I can teach that transition, but like, okay, well, it's a little bit different than on the defense, but I can't teach you how to be a lawyer. I don't have the time to do that. Mm-hmm. And so that role was like, it just never got any traction. And then we hired one lawyer who, I remember giving a piece of advice to, and he goes, well, actually they've changed the law. And so now the way it works is, blah, I don't remember what it was. And then I realized this young lawyer is now teaching me the law. And I thought, well, this is how it's supposed to be.
Right.
And so once that happened, I thought about it. I was like, you know what? Your job and any job in this role, and as we continue to grow, I'm not hiring anybody who can't teach me something. The lawyers I hire, you're right, they need to be better at it than I am. They need to know more about it than I do. Otherwise, we're just going to be stuck in this cycle. And so I have found, our success really has been a little bit luck. I never discredit luck, being at the right place at the right time. Yeah. But those key hires that really, elevate.
And when you have the right hires, instead of you having to advise people and tell them what to do, they're advising you.
Right.
And
it makes all the difference.
Guidance on what to do. Right?
And now I don't have to worry about it, right? So I don't have to ask him how his case is going. I know his case is going to be fine. He's great. All I have to do is I look at the numbers and I can say, hey, he's having a great year, which means I'm having a great year, which means our clients are having a great year.
Yeah, right.
Right. And so now I've closed the door on that, and now I can focus on things like this, on the podcast or stuff like that. But there does reach a point. I feel like I've given away so many hats, and with my hair, I got to have something. There's like barely, I'm getting, I'm going to get sunburn here eventually. But maybe, I don't know. I was talking to somebody the other day. Their goal was they never wanted to come to the office ever again. And they're like, do you feel that way? And I said, no, I don't think I do. I like coming here. I love coming. I love being the first one here. I don't like that it's early, but I love opening up the door and being the first one, flipping that, close to open sign if we had one, the metaphorical sign,
right,
which is just the light switch. But I love that sense of we've built something here, and we're continuing to build something.
Well, you have that entrepreneur's pride, right? You're in growth mode for yourself, and you are very much a visionary. I can tell just from our brief interaction that you're a visionary, and visionaries can see the future, and visionaries want to grow, and they have this unique thing, and they're great at leading the way. They're usually terrible at execution.
Yeah,
I will say
right.
I'm terrible at execution. Follow through.
Yes.
Not my strength.
Not my
right?
strength, no.
I'm great at a lot of ideas. Actually making them happen, not great. Not my thing. So we have to pair ourselves as good visionaries, strong visionaries, with someone who is a real strong operator, COO, head of ops, you said, integrator, someone who is basically taking our ideas around big opportunities, big problems, big relationships, all the culture, growth, all these things, and can actually make that happen, bring it down to the ground and make it happen. And I find that that is the weakest part for most businesses, that someone either doesn't have that person or they're trying to fulfill both roles, and they're either, they're more inclined to be the integrator or COO person, or they're more inclined to be the CEO visionary person, and they really suck when they're trying to do both.
Yeah.
Because they're oftentimes having to do things that they aren't the best at or good at. And the way it works best is when the visionary can be the visionary and they find the right partner, the right operator or COO to actually go out and execute.
That's exactly right. So I like to go for runs. I'm a big runner, and everyone knows it's like when I come back from my run, I've got like a half a dozen ideas. They're not all good, right? But still, like, that's my time to unplug and just have manic reflection on everything. There's nothing else to do. And so a lot of time, but the executing those ideas is absolutely where I would fall short. And what ended up happening then is you live not in the CEO role, but you're then officially forced into that COO role because you don't have anybody to execute your ideas. And so I would come up with great ideas. We should do this, we should do that, but never really executing on them or getting halfway there or investigating. Like, I was going to open an office in Chicago. My good buddy from college, my college roommate's a great lawyer up there. I was like, you know what? We should open an office in Chicago, and you and I can work on these cases together. It's perfect example. I sent some stuff into the Bar Association of Illinois. I got a couple of people that were going to write me letters of recommendation, and then it just like fell off. And everyone's like, and my buddy's like laughing at me, like, what happened to our office in Chicago? I'm like, oh, well, COVID hit, and then Hurricane Ida hit, and then, but it's an idea of like, which we should still be doing that. It's still, but for the execution part, it's a great idea. Maybe could be a horrible idea. I don't know.
Could be. I had an office in Chicago once. It didn't work out so well. But just to say that I think that many times that what I see often in businesses is you have a visionary who doesn't have a strong executor. And if you don't have execution, all these ideas and all this stuff, right, they don't go anywhere.
Yeah.
And I'm counseling clients of mine that I'm coaching all the time because I was fortunate in my other business, I have a strong number two, a strong execution person. And had it not been for that person, all these ideas would have gone nowhere. So.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting. Do you do any of I shouldn't call it personality tests because I don't really think that's the right term, like Colby or Print?
So yeah, Colby is one that we, and I'm a medium fact finder, but quick start.
Yeah,
and interesting. My number two is like a low fact finder and quick start, and she has high follow through. I have terrible follow through. So one of the things I'll be talking, and she'll say, "I have enough. I'm ready to go," and I'll be like, "Well, I want a little bit more," and those kinds of things. I think those assessment tools can all be valuable. You have to understand the limitations and what they don't tell you, but the more that we know about people and the way that we work together, I think the better it is. You can't have analysis paralysis, though. I tell people don't have people take 5 different ones. Pick one. There's different ones. Different. I mean, Colby's a good one.
Colby is a good one. But it is what it is, right? It's neither right nor wrong. It doesn't necessarily matter. I think it can matter
it's
from
communication style one, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it matters for hiring, right? Yeah. So I'm a quick start. I don't know my numbers. I might be like a 4.49. I don't know what that
I don't
last
know what
one.
mine are.
I don't know.
Some people
this
can
group
rattle
I'm in,
that
everyone's
off.
like, "Oh, you must be a 4.3," and I was like, "What?" But the point is that I know that I'm a quick start. I know that I'm an idea guy, and I'm the kind of guy who's never going to read the instructions, right? Like, I will buy the barbecue pit, I will take it out of the box, and I will just start putting it together.
Yeah.
But I'll also get to a point like halfway through where you're like, shit, I don't think this was right. It's like, honey, does this look right to you? The wheels are on the bottom, right? Right. So it does help. So when we talk about like hiring here, it helps because I'll often, remind other lawyers in the office, just like me, because everyone's like a high functioning attorney who, are plaintiffs lawyers and are free thinking and are visionaries. I'm like, you don't need a free thinking visionary. Like I'm that person or you're that person. We don't need that. I want somebody who, when I say I need this done, is going to like map it out, have an organized approach, and then execute. That's what I want. Not to say that I don't value another person's ideas, but as we are filling a role, as we are building out a team, because if you just got a whole room full of like free thinking visionaries, nothing's ever going to get done, right? It's a nightmare.
You need execution people to get shit done. That's the thing.
Yeah, right. Like you can't just have a whole North Pole full of Santa Clauses, man. That'd be ridiculous, right? You got to have some elves in there who are executors, right? They're quick starts, but they also follow through really well, I suppose. So, all right. Well, I'm getting this signal. So I think I've rambled on too long. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I really enjoyed talking to you about everything that you're doing. I love hearing from other business owners and coaches and mentors in business ownership and entrepreneurship who are not lawyers, because it's always fun to see how all of our problems are the same.
No, very much so. I've been in groups of business owners and entrepreneurs across the wide spectrum of verticals. We all have the same things, right? We all have the same problems. We all have the same challenges. We all have the same great opportunities. And I think what's so great about being an entrepreneur myself, and I can tell you're a great entrepreneur yourself, that you are a great entrepreneur as well, is that I just love the freedom of being able to decide on the direction I want to go in, lead people in a direction, have them follow, and just feel that self-fulfillment of, wow, look at what we created here. And I take it very, my heroes are all entrepreneurs. They're the people who create jobs. They're people who create companies. They're people who create great products and services. And I believe very strongly in entrepreneurs and entrepreneurship and business leaders. And I admire what you're doing here. I think it's great that you've grown the business so much, and keep it up.
Oh, we will. Stay tuned for next year. I won't tell anybody because I'll have a mutiny on my hands from all the fatigue. But we're not. I'll never stop. Someone asked me that. They're like, when are you going to stop? And I said, what? I'll never stop. I'll never stop. I'll stop when either I'm dead or we officially have reached a point beyond my abilities, and then I'll have to regroup and figure out where did I go wrong. But I'll never stop. So it's fun. It's a lot. I enjoy it. So
thank you. Well, thank you for having me.
Thanks for being on the show. Tell our viewers, all like one of them, where they can find you.
Well, I am Jude Olinger, Olinger, and so I have a very complex, all the social channels usually, right? But I've got a very complex website. It's judeolinger.com.
Perfect. All right,
and that's my Bloom Growth Coaching, and so reach out there and say hello.
All right. Thanks much.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Take care. Thank you for joining me today on Above the Legal Limit. If you enjoyed the show and you want to hear more about business and law, hit that subscribe button. If you didn't like the show, keep it to yourself. Remember, there's no limit to what we can achieve. We will see you next week. Until then, even though we're above the legal limit, let's drive safely. Cheers, everyone.